And at one point, you were homeless and you realized that there was this collaborative approach that you need to take to yourself, your own mental health, your mental fitness. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What that realization, if you can recall how you felt in that moment and how you moved forward from that?
Well, it was a very specific mental shift I went through at that time. I ended up becoming homeless, and I was sleeping behind some garbage cans behind a theatre in North London, and it was very cold. It's February the 23rd in 2008, and I'd gone to sleep against the metal gate there, and I honestly didn't know, freezing, I didn't know whether I was going to wake up in the morning. And I don't pray to God, but in this situation, I just said, I prayed that whatever value I had inside of myself, that it didn't go to waste, that it would make some kind of difference in the world. And that's all I wanted. And the strange thing about times like that is you can have a lot of things that you can lose in your life in a circumstance like that. But one thing that always is going to be left with you is the truth about you and whether or not you've been true to yourself. And that's what I discovered in that moment. I realized what the truth was for me. And that was that people could not just be helped by me, but they could be involved in something where they could help each other without me even being there. And the mindset that came out of that was this billionaire mindset, which is not the traditional view of money-based billionaire, but the idea that instead of making money while I slept, I want to focus on making a difference while I slept. And that didn't mean me helping people one-on-one. It meant me taking the idea of, what people say about teaching a man how to fish. Instead of teaching one man how to fish and helping him feed himself, I want to teach that man to teach others, so that everybody could be fed. And with that, I thought, given how many occasions I've nearly been killed or died in my life, I need to make myself, take myself out of the equation and build something that would work whether or not I'm there. And that meant building a software platform which people could discover their value, work with each other, and ultimately it wouldn't even need me to be there. People could just help each other through that platform. And that moment was fairly pivotal, this realization that I had to make a difference while I slept, and it had to depend just on people helping each other and not on me actually being present to what was going on. And that, you have to take your ego out of the equation when you do something like that, because you can't be around for people, but your gift, the value that you generate, if you can somehow embody that so people can, capitalize on it and empower themselves through it, then that's the best gift that you can probably give the world, especially because it's not dependent on you. It'll keep on working long after you've died, for example. So that, given how many occasions I came close to death, it was really important for me to something to work, whether or not I'm there. So in the end, I did manage to do that. And of course, you're one of the people who's experienced that platform, working not just on yourself, but also together with other people, often, like I said, without me even being there.
And, that's a powerful approach. And removing the ego, I know when we develop things and create things, there's a part of us who would really like people to validate it and get excited about it. And at the same time, to be able to detach from it. How were you able to detach from, because it's a remarkable program. And we're going to dive a little bit more into that, the energy diamond coaching and social vitamins. But when it comes to the ego part, what have you done to detach from the outcome or detach from needing that validation?
Ultimately, it was about looking at what was the outcome I was seeking, and did my ego need to be a part of it? And one thing I did really come to terms with what a lot of entrepreneurs and people in the world, seek to, which is to scale their business, to refine their services and products and reach as many people as possible. And I found that when I was working at university, I was working on multi-million euro projects, working with orphans in Romania and refugees in Syria and Gaza camps in Jordan. And one of the things I realized was when I was helping people there to help one another, that if you really want to scale up the difference you want to make, you have to ensure, as a matter of continuity, that things work without you. And they can't depend on you. When thousands of people are in the process of being empowered, you cannot have that empowerment interrupted just because you don't turn up on a particular day because you're ill or something's happened to you or you missed the train, whatever. So it's a part of the architecture of empowerment for helping people at scale, that it cannot depend on any one person and it cannot depend on any one group. It has to work at a meta level, it has to work above people's individual dependence. And then when you work on projects like that, you're working with consortiums, you're working with people in local areas in given countries to help them to achieve things so that after you've left, they can carry on. And yeah, it's great to see refugees who've been helped into education and get jobs. It's great to see orphans not become state dependent in Romania and get their own education. But the weird thing is, I never met any of them. I know I've helped them, but I've never met any of them.
Wow.
It's kind of a bit hard because I want to be able to engage with those people. But you know what? If you want to make a difference at scale, that sort of thing just can't be part of the equation. You can't do that. And it's a bit of a sacrifice, but you realize it's a necessity in order for the empowerment to be, first of all, initiated, but more importantly, for it to be sustained.
And you know what I find very interesting about that is that when you're taking that out of the equation, but you're also recognizing that in order for that to live on, and I like to refer to The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho's book, where he says that whatever your work does, it does live on for centuries, the power of word. And I think about the books I have in my library that I might never meet those authors, and they may never understand how they've impacted my life. And I know you have impacted my life, so I'm grateful for that. And thank you, Jazz. Because through your energy diamond coaching, I was able to really understand how we have our logical side and our emotional side, of our brains, and how we can leverage it on any given day, knowing what side needed more attention than the other. So I would love for you to talk about the software you've developed and a little bit more about social vitamins.
Yeah. Well, when I was first coaching people, I realized that they really needed three kinds of help. They either need to have their strengths supported, they need to have their weaknesses challenged, or they needed to be having someone as a sounding board. They need some kind of reflection in order for them to weigh up the right things in their life, make the right kind of decisions. And it's kind of like your best friends, if you think about it at school. Your best friends will give you support when you need it. All right, they'll challenge you and push you and stretch you when you need it, and they'll lastly be a great sounding board for you as well. And sometimes the same friend can be your support for one day, but it might be challenging the next day, for example. And if you're lucky, you might find all three kinds of help in one person, and they become your best friend, or they become someone you marry, or you do business with, for example. And in a way, those things, support, challenge, reflection, if you think about that, we need those things every day. If we don't have support for a day, maybe it's not a big deal, but if we don't have support for a week, or we've never been supported for months or years, that's going to cause a pathology in our growth. Just like vitamins. They say that vitamins are things that do you harm when you don't get them. And it's the same thing with support, challenge, and reflection. If you don't get support, challenge, and reflection at the right times, in the right doses, and from the right sources, then typically you don't get to grow. You don't learn your life lessons, and you start showing pathologies in terms of your own empowerment. So it's really important to get those three a day. You know, support, challenge, reflection every day. Some days you need more support, some days you need more challenge, some days you need more reflection. A bit like, you know, when, for example, a woman gets pregnant, she needs to have a change in vitamins, folic acid, number of, it's a very different needs at that time. So also in certain times in people's lives, they need a different mix of vitamins, social vitamins. Sometimes they might need more support. They might need more challenge. Maybe it's a time for deeper reflection. They need all three, but maybe the proportions just alter depending on the circumstances. And this is what I realized in the end. If I could find what people needed support around, where they needed challenge, where they needed get reflection, they will be able to grow every day, and they'll be able to make the best of themselves, and not just through supporting themselves and challenging themselves and getting reflection for themselves, but more empowering way and more kind of altruistic way when they do it together with others. I mean, other people can be a support for you. They can be a vitamin for you in that way. They can be a challenge for you. They can be the source of reflection. Even a book or a piece of music could be a vitamin in that sense. It could challenge you. It could help you reflect. So social vitamins aren't just things that you get from other people. You can get them for anything in the world. If you just knew what the perfect source of support was on a given day, or reflection or challenge, you would find your vitality, your clarity lifted by getting that nutrient for your life on that day. And the whole energy diamond is really based on people just getting these nutrients, these social vitamins. And as you know, the platform that you've worked with me, it discovers what they are for you and says, go get them.
Right. And knowing what percentage where you're at, and then it matches you with people who would provide that for you. But for our audience right now, listening or watching us here, what is some of the things, like you talked to, they could use books, and it really comes down to getting to know yourself, right? Know thyself, so that you know what things provide you support or what things provide reflection. Like I journal, so I use that reflection part there. But when I can talk to someone and they reflect back to me, or I hear a phrase in a song that gets me thinking about something about my life, these are what I'm assuming that I can use as social vitamins. If I was to give somebody right now, what could they do if they wanted to strengthen themselves?
Well,
What
just
would
like
you
vitamins,
recommend?
you have the actual vitamins, but then you have a delivery package which enables them to be swallowed, you know. And it's the same principle here, where if you need a vitamin of support, it's all very well having a vitamin of support, but you need a method of delivery for it to get into your life, you know. And that's where the logical, intuitive stuff comes in, because let's say you got support and someone gave you a lot of logic about how to do something, very rational, strategic, they're very realistic, but really what you needed was just someone to connect in with your feelings at the intuitive level. Then that delivery method just won't work for you. You know, you needed that
So
intuition.
it
You
won't
know,
soak
logic.
in.
Yeah, it won't get in, right?
Yeah.
So when you got the right delivery in terms of mindset, that's what that logical, intuitive thing is. It's all very well having the support, challenge, and reflection, but if it's not delivered with the right mindset, it's just never going to get absorbed, let alone, you know, give you the nurturing that you need to grow in the way that you need to.
Right.
So I think that mindset aspect is really important. And when you can take a picture of how well someone's meeting their needs and with what mindset they're meeting those needs at the character level, and you can match that to how somebody else is doing that, you might find that someone who's logical, if they're paired up with someone else who's logical, they can support each other. So if they're very similar, support each other. But unfortunately, people who have the same strengths tend to have the same weaknesses as well. So they're not the best people to challenge you or learn from. They're great to like, but not great to learn from. You need someone who's opposite for you for that. You need someone who's got strengths where you've got weaknesses, and vice versa. So a logical person would have to be matched with an intuitive person for that learning to happen. And lastly, you need someone to mediate the two, and that's where you need someone who's got a mix of similar and opposite qualities, a mix of supportive and challenging vitamins, if you like. And that person who can offer reflection, they'll be able to help, you know, make sure that you got the right balance in things too. And the software can identify how someone's managing their energies, logical or intuitive, where they're trying to get support, challenge, and reflection, match that to somebody else and say, you two need to get together for support. you'll be able to give each other social vitamin support for the day. You two will be able to give each other, and in some cases, if you're lucky, it's like I said about friends, you might find yourself matched to someone who's both can give you support and give you reflection. For example, they're a bit of a superfood because they can give you more than one vitamin. And that's happened. I think you might have encountered that when you were doing work with the women. You found some days there were women who could give you more vitamins, than just the one. And it meant that it's more efficient and effective to be working with that one person because you're getting everything from them that you need, rather than to go to lots of different people.
Yeah. And, you hear that, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most, and you should surround yourself with like-minded people. But what I also recognize is that challenge is to surround yourself sometimes with people who think differently than you, so that you
don't want to be in an echo chamber. That's not
no,
helpful.
No, and we need to get those different.
Facebook, that's all about that. We need a new kind of social media which doesn't create echo chambers, but creates what I call resonance chambers, which allow people to get this support, challenge, reflection through similar, opposite, and complementary people. And it ensures that people don't end up reinforcing bad habits, for example, and it ensures that they stretch beyond their current limits, out of their comfort zones, and are able to grow in a mature way, not just for themselves, but also together with others.
Very, very true, because we need to have that stretch in order to grow. And I know when I was part of the Energy Diamond coaching, after the 12 weeks, I had realized that I have a logical and emotional brain, 50-50. So that referred to as the Renaissance mindset, which was very fascinating to me, because when I did my TED Talk, I talked about how we can be just like the Renaissance people of Picasso, and and I thought that was when I heard that, I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. How
that's your makeup. You're made up of Renaissance vitamins.
Yeah, to be able to shift. And this is where a lot of emotional intelligence comes in too, is recognizing what another person may need and being able to manage our own emotions, but be able to support or challenge or reflect to other people.
It's a collaborative form of growth where you're growing together with others. And this is the difference between people having power and people being empowered. People who are in power, they take strengths and energy from others and use that to boost themselves. And people who are empowered, they tend to grow together with others without anything being sacrificed on their part to somebody else. And I think it's a really important difference, that if you look at someone who's rich in empowerment, they have the ability to make a difference to other people, not just on a one-on-one basis, as I said, but that empowerment is kind of chain reactive. That once you transfer it over to somebody, if it's real or genuine empowerment, that person will then go and transfer it onto others. You don't get that with power. You put someone in power, they're not going to just give that power away to somebody else, typically, So power and empowerment are very different things. And the Energy Diamond system is very much focused on, first, let's get you empowered, like charity. This begins at home, right? Empowerment. And then let's see if we can get that empowerment to expand beyond you, and for it to be a transferable asset, and it doesn't lessen you in you giving it away. In fact, it strengthens you. It makes you brighter and more, radiant in terms of your energy, to know that you transferred something and they became empowered and they passed it on. A bit like how someone uses a match and they light up a match off your match. In the process of doing that lighting up, for a brief moment, your light becomes brighter. Okay, but you don't lose anything of your light. In fact, in that moment, you gain a bit of light, and that person walks away with their own little match, and they can start their own fires. And other people can start their own things from that too. And that's the kind of empowerment I'm talking about. You never diminish it in giving it away or sharing it. You only become brighter and more empowered in the process yourself.
And that's in being a part of that, I was able to experience a lot of that. And I also noticed when we had those when you have your own tough day and recognizing where you need to have those extra boosts. And when we had those snapshots of every day, we referred to them as the mental selfie, right? Not taking the camera, but a mental selfie of how we're doing on any given day. And it was able to show us with light and color where we needed that support. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the mental selfie and how it helps predict future outcomes.